You are listening to Trophy Horse with your hosts, Tricky Nick, Alex, I Yield to No One, Sid, and Ender Phoenix.
Well, here we are, Trophy Horse, episode 672. We took a week off, and for some reason, now we're down 2 men. Alex, any explanation?
It must be because everyone's afraid of the new platform we're using. I don't know. I've already managed to fuck this up once, so let's hope this recording goes smoothly. So, for those who don't know, we're using Discord now instead of Skype because Microsoft done killed Skype, and we didn't want to jump to Teams because we don't do what we're told. We're not obedient, Microsoft. And, I exited out of the window and thought I killed the entire recording. So, live, laugh, learn. Or live, laugh, love. Whichever one that is. Both of them, maybe.
Yeah, well, I, for one, enjoy Discord. I have no problem. So, unfortunately, that means for anybody listening to this, well, I guess fortunately enough, you don't stick around for the live show anyway, so nothing changes for our listeners at home. But if you enjoy our live shows, we're working on it. We just don't want to pay Microsoft any more than we already do for all the shit, just to the privilege of being able to live stream. So other than that, like I mentioned, we are down 2 men this week. Tricky was in the field today doing his due diligence to make sure that New York City was safe. And Yield has once again taken a trip to where did he go this time, Alex? I want to say Nicaragua.
Yeah, because Madagascar didn't work out. We really didn't get all that many listeners from Madagascar, so we figured we would send him somewhere else, Central America. We thought maybe the other side of the globe would be more fruitful.
Yeah, so we'll see if any of our Nicaraguan listeners chime in. So feel free to go to our Facebook page and actually type in that you're from Nicaragua and you heard this message, and give a wave if you saw Yield walking about with our sign. It should be Trophy Whores Listen or Perish.
Yeah,
that was the slogan.
Folks, he's tall, got glasses, and probably is wearing something sports related, something Ohio sports related. I don't think there's many people in Nicaragua walking around with Bengals or Ohio State attire, so should be easy to spot him.
Awesome. So as we mentioned, we took a week off, and happy belated Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. Hopefully it was a good one for you. I was at my in-laws for the day, and unfortunately I couldn't make it, and then the boys had their own things going on, so we decided that, hold off for another week. But that did not mean that there was holding off for any trophies. So as far as our updated trophy counts go, Tricky is at level 967 with 34,392 trophies and 996 platinums. Alex, your counts?
I am at 521, total trophy count of 10,612, and a platinum count of 193 in 192 games.
Yield is level 582 with 11,123 trophies and 212 platinums, which is one more than the last time we recorded. So it looks like he went up by 1. I have not moved at all because I really don't want to change that number until I have to, because I'm still level 222 with 1,337 trophies and 0 platinums.
For all the WB fans out there, Jey Uso's got his yeet, 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 and Matt over here has got his leet, leet, leet.
I'll take that. That's, man,
Elite.
I really wish Tricky was recording. We can get that in there. Anytime I go to announce my trophy count, we could just say leet, leet, leet.
I'm sure I could. I actually uploaded you doing the chicken fucker thing. I actually snipped that audio and uploaded it to Dropbox, so that's in there now if we want to use it. But I'm sure we can absolutely.
Oh, I could use that. I can use that whenever we do edits, whenever we have to stitch something in.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Sid is level 893 with 27,346 trophies and 851 platinums. So that's one aspect of the show that if you're a first time listener, welcome. But we also have this thing where our boy Gaz Davis has a trophy rarity contest that everybody kind of puts into. So I've got an update here for you. There is now a three-way battle at the top of the leaderboards in Division 1. Pee-wee steals the lead with Marky Frazier, who drops to third, whilst Diego soars up to second with a score of 379 points this week. There is now just 37 points separating the top three. Mr. TMNT 84 was the only other mover in the division. He jumped up 2 places from 11th to 9th. As for the Trophy Horse hosts, Yield stays 6th following a score of 63 and moves to 894. Tricky scored 11 points, even though he forgot to do his cheap bonus points game. He stays 13th at 317. Alex is 4 points behind Tricky on 313, thanks to a 10-point increase this week. In Division 2, there were no changes in the top half of the tables. Yep, congrats, Alex. Appreciate you staying on
congrats on my
top
10 points this week. You got other people scoring like 180, 200 points, and I'm like, 10? Got that.
More points than me.
Got that X, 10.
More points than me. I don't care about trophies, folks.
It's not a secret, Matt. You ain't got to be all like cloak and dagger with it. We know.
I'm saying for the first time listeners.
Yeah, for everybody in Nicaragua. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In Division 2, there were no changes in the top half of the tables, which means it's still Doc Chicken leading the way, Psychicist in second, and Affectatious Donk in third. Hope you're doing well, CJ. Dupes 25 was the only mover as he leapfrogged at one Seagal into 12th from 13th. Notable points scored came from Kalai, who earned first trophies since February and earned herself 15 points this week and her rarest trophy of the year so far. Top scorer in Division 1 was Diego with 379, and Psychicist took that accolade in Division 2 with a score of 162. The rarest trophies of the week were earned by 5th spot was Pee-wee. That was a weird transition, Gaz. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. 5th spot was Pee-wee for Numero Uno in GTA 5 at 4.54%. Fourth was Psychicist for the Plat and Arc Survival Ascended at 3.34%. Third was Diego for the Plat and Forza Horizon 5 at 2.98%. Second was Doc Chicken 13 for Wololo in Age of Empires 2 at 2.8%. And taking the first spot, the rarest trophy of this week was Rafflaws with GD Parkour Instructor and Dying Light DLC at 2.41%. Plat shoutouts go to Psychicist in Brotato and First Descendant, Pee-wee and Alan Wake Remastered, Tricky's favorite game, Gaz Davis in Bang on Balls Chronicles, Crook 09 in Intruders, Hide and Seek and Goat Sims 3, Affectatious Donk in Assassin's Creed Shadows, Dodge Williams in Criminal Cleanup Simulator. There was one thing I was actually looking at that looked entertaining. Dupes 25 in Octopath Traveler, Psychicist again in Ark Survival Ascended, and finally Yield in SnowRunner. For anyone who wants to see the league tables, all stats including platinums earned by each individual, check out the Trophy Looting Facebook group or Discord. The links are in there. And then he says cheers. Does that sound convincing? Did it sound like I know what I was talking about?
Sounds like you were a man reading off some important information.
Okay, good, because I might as well have been reading grammar or I'm sorry, geometry or something else, because that was all Greek to me.
I mean, we would also say that it's like Tricky trying to read like an authentic like Chinese menu.
Ooh, snap. But yeah, so congrats to everybody who was playing this week, earning trophies, getting your game on. And hopefully there is some more trophies for you all in the future. But speaking of trophies, Alex, you seem to have earned some trophies. It's been 2 weeks. What were you playing?
Well, Matt, I have actually, a lot of my time in general has been I played a little bit of Rocket League to get some of the freebies in the Star Wars event, but most of my time was spent with Helldivers this week. The time in between me transitioning from one game to another is kind of elongating. Like I need more time, more of a breather in between games, and I don't really know what it is. Maybe it's just because there's really nothing substantially exciting for me to want to play. So after finishing RoboCop, I kind of just simmered around in Helldivers for quite some time. Don't get me wrong, I'm getting super credits. I was trying to open up that new war bond, which for the first time in a while, I was able to open the new war bond upon release. They got some new stuff in there, like you can customize weapons. Weapons now upgrade individually based on your usage of them. So of course the Jar 5 Dominator for me is going to get a huge uptick in its usefulness. But yeah, I've been doing more of match strategy. I've been doing a lot of farming of super credits, and so I've been playing on level 2s by myself, and I've got a lot of people jumping in my games being like, hey man, you farming? So people get it. You see someone do it at 80, 90, level 80 and 90, and you see them in a number 2, and it's like, oh, I know exactly what you're doing. So a lot of my time is doing the mat, as we'll call it, and doing the dance where you load up with your all-terrain vehicle or your recon vehicle and you just drive around and you get all the super credits you can, and then you get out of the map and you go on. So lots of farming in Helldivers, but I did start a new game. When I say a new game, I mean a new game to me, because this game has been out for 3 or so years now. There's actually a PlayStation 4 version too, but Arcade Paradise. So this game is where you start out running your dad's laundromat. You're a young kid, you're 19, and you're trying to find your way in the world, and your dad's like, hey, this responsibility could be good for you. Run the family laundromat. And so, very early on, you know what the game is about. You're going to run an arcade. But at the start, they don't take too long to get into the fact that the arcade side of the business could be the boon financially for the family. So you're trying to convince your dad, hey, we need to turn this into arcade. And then I guess, it's just the transition from running the family's laundromat to actually running your own arcade. I'm at the point, and I haven't really played all that much. I've played maybe 3 or 4 days in the game time, maybe an hour and a half, maybe a couple hours. But I'm at the point now where I've purchased a couple arcade machines and I've kind of run out of space in my little back room. So I've got the expansion available to upgrade. So we're gonna basically, your sister works for the city and she can get permits to allow you to knock down the wall to the business next to you, or the empty business next to you, and you can gain that space to upgrade your arcade as you try to convince your dad, hey, let me run this because I could make more money. But so far it's a lot of the gameplay loop is obviously it goes day by day, and you're just doing the different tasks, which is, this laundromat's really weird. Matt, I don't know how you guys do laundromats up in New York, but I assume it's the same as here. So usually when you go into a laundromat, you take your stuff in and you put it in the washing machine, and then you wait there and you put it in the dryer as the customer. But in this game, as the proprietor of the business, you are responsible for putting people's laundry in the washing machine and the dryer. I don't know, I guess they had to do that way because otherwise you wouldn't have enough to do and the game would be really boring. But thus far, it's just managing menial tasks around the laundromat, doing people's laundry, cleaning up trash, taking trash out to the dumpster, unclogging the toilet, cleaning the bathrooms when you're done, putting money in the safe, answering, messages on your machine, getting all the coins out of the hoppers, not only the change machine in the laundromat, but also the back room where people go to play arcades while they're sitting, there waiting for their laundry to be done. So, so far, I'm kind of hoping that the game goes full bore into the video game arcade, running that side of the business, and kind of leaves the laundromat stuff behind, because if I'm going to be really, the laundromat stuff is pretty boring. Kind of the challenge of the game comes from the arcade games and trying to get high scores in those and play those really well. The day-to-day tasks in the laundromat are generally kind of boring and just kind of tedious and not a lot of fun. But being able to manage and kind of once you get enough room in your arcade to be able to move the arcades around to where you can put popular machines next to unpopular machines to hopefully build the popularity of the unpopular machines. There's some science behind it. So I'm not super far in, but I do so far enjoy the game. Just kind of like this little simulation game. It doesn't take a ton of brain power. It doesn't, I don't have to be on the edge with my reaction times. Just, a nice little kind of cozy game, I would call it, where you get to run a business based on the hobby that you love. So, so far, I like the game. I hope it, like I said, I want to get away from the laundromat stuff and go more towards the arcade. So I hope that kind of becomes the business and the arcade just becomes a thing the laundromat becomes a thing of the past, but we'll see. But yeah, most of my time has been sitting in Helldivers and in Arcade Paradise.
I know you said that You don't know how they do laundromats up here. Well, you can pay the laundromat to do your laundry for you. So, I mean, there's always that option.
To be fair, it's been a while since I've been, lucky enough to have, a laundromat in my house. But even when I was in my apartments, there were laundry machines on site, so I would just go do my laundry. But so it's been a while since I went to a laundromat. But I just would generally sit there with my stuff and then do it myself. So, but I guess being able to make extra money by putting people's laundry in there does make sense.
Yes.
And they score you for everything, like how well you throw. Like there's different meters, like how well you throw, trash in the dumpster, or if you get better scores, like it goes from like S rank, and I've gotten as low as C rank for how fast you get the laundry in and out of the wash and put it in the dryer and then get out of the dryer. So you do get scored on things, and you get extra money based on that. But making money in the game is not a problem. You'll be just fine.
That makes sense. For me, it's been a whirlwind of 2 weeks, and I'll go into that a little later. But I have been playing some games. Of course, staple Monster Hunter Wilds. Just continue grinding in that game because that's what you do. You just continue hunting and making stuff. More Oblivion remastered. I've been doing a lot of exploring, just going into caves, gathering stuff. I finally got my magic high enough that I can cast higher level destruction spells, including Fire Javelin and Fireball, which is fun because I just basically one-shot most trolls that I come across. Unfortunately, the thing I learned is when you go into the Oblivion Gates and you're fighting the Daedra demons, they're pretty fire resistant. So I have to come up with some alternative attacks. Little Team Fortress 2, just because it's always good to play Team Fortress 2. I did pick up, and I've been playing Doom: The Dark Ages. And I love most everything about this game and what they've did. Comparing it to Doom Eternal, Doom 2016. The only issue is, and for me it's kind of a big one, is the music is just not up to par. And obviously, if you've been following Bethesda and things going on for a while, the composer of Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, Mick Gordon, who did a lot of the background music and the fight music, there was a huge falling out, lawsuits, claims on either side. So obviously they did not use him for this game. And you can tell, like, as I'm playing, there's just very little ambient music going on, and it's kind of a stark contrast to what I was used to. So it's a little disheartening to be able to play a Doom game and not get the adrenaline pumping because the music has got you. But the game is more than enough there. It's got tons of weapons, a new shield saw. So you remember when Gears of War added a chainsaw bayonet to a gun? Well, guess what? They added a chainsaw to a shield. And the real cool thing, I don't know if you ever watched the YouTube channel Man at Forged, Alex, or Man at Arms Reforged. They made a working model of this chainsaw shield. It's crazy. It's the most dangerous thing I've ever seen. Shields are usually meant to protect. They're not meant to chainsaw things to death. So the chain shield, we'll call it, has different abilities. You can use it to rush enemies. You can toss it into enemies to damage them or stun them in place, allowing you to get up and finish. You now have a power gauntlet that you can use to punch, or a flail that you can use. Again, this game's called The Dark Ages. It's set in the past of the Doom timeline. Then you have the standard fare weapons. You got shotguns, you got chain guns, you got your plasma rifle. But in typical Doom fashion, they've got some weird and cool guns. One is called the I forget what it's called, but its ammo is skulls. So basically it chews up skulls and you shoot them out in an arc in front of you. So it's not as nuanced as Doom Eternal, meaning that like you have to use a certain type against certain enemies. This one gives you a lot of mobility and a lot of variability in how you take down various enemies. They've got plasma shields that you can use to use your plasma gun to take them out, as well as you've got your shield can bounce around different enemies. So it's definitely fun. I'm definitely having a good time with it. And there's plenty of collectibles, plenty of things to do in the game, upgrades galore. Definitely good. If you like Doom and Doom Eternal, you should definitely check out Doom: The Dark Ages. It's available on Game Pass, but I did buy it on Steam because, I'm not doing those services anymore. And the only other game I've played, I've started a new habit, is that when I go to bed, I actually break out the 3DS and I play Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I never played through the full game. I remember the last time I played it, I still have my save on there. I remember becoming adult Link, but then I gave up shortly after that. I think I'm going to go back through and try definitely a more thorough playthrough because I know there's things I missed as Kid Link that I didn't get on that other playthrough. So I'm definitely going to spend my time with it and try to get through. And the thing I'll say, for being the remastered edition, the game looks good on the 3DS. And I'm happy to spend my time in it. And it's definitely one of those bucket list items I want to be able to say that I can go back through and actually beat Ocarina of Time. But that is what I have been playing. And with that, we are just plugging along on this two-man show into the news. I got a bunch of articles here. I didn't know what our attendance would look like tonight, so I threw in a bunch. We'll kind of go through some of those items. But the first one here, coming from Forbes, written by Paul Tassi, talks about new info from Marathon, Bungie's morale, launch worries, changing plans. And this kind of comes after a match of a article also reported by out there, Insider Gaming, Grant Taylor Hill, because there was a claim that somebody put out there that said, hey, Bungie is using my art. And it was in the Marathon preview trailer. Comes out that says the artist N2 explained how huge companies regularly parasite her designs while she struggles to make a living. Hours after the claim hit the net, Bungie responded explaining that the blame lands at the feet of a former artist who used the art in a texture sheet that found its way into the game. So Bungie obviously doing the right thing. You get a lot of claims like this. A lot of companies come out there and they go, hey, our company did nothing wrong. We admit to no wrongdoing, and therefore we will fight this claim in court. Well, this Bungie actually came out and said, hey, this fired artist did this without knowing. And unfortunately, the one thing that they haven't done is set how they're going to make this right. I don't know if that means that they're just going to pay the artist or if they're going to try to remove that art from the game. Well, this leads into the Tassi article where it just talks a lot about the things that have been going on from Bungie over the years. And it's now not just Bungie's legal problem, but Sony's legal problem. And morale across all departments, it's like it's never been worse. Between all the flack they've gotten for Destiny 2 and the things that have happened over that and the decisions there recently, to the shakeup of leadership, and now this coming in, it just seems like Bungie, I don't know if it's them not catching a break or them getting their comeuppance for doing the things that they've done over the years, trying to breaking away from Microsoft, then breaking away from Activision, only to become under Sony's umbrella. And now with all their problems are Sony's problems. So I don't know what to make of this. It's hard to say whether, if does Sony need to come in and just completely upend Bungie at this point?
It seems like, and I assume that all of this is coming about because of stuff that Bungie has done, decisions they've made. I mean, they said that there was a fired artist. We don't know why that artist was fired or why they were let go. Were they, was this something that they were found out to be doing and they got fired for that? Or were they just let go and Bungie knew about it and never said anything. A lot of Bungie's issues come back to Bungie and Bungie's leadership and decisions they have made. And to be clear, while Bungie wanted autonomy, clearly there are companies out there that don't need autonomy because they can't run it correctly or they didn't have the right people in place. So it's hard for me to feel sorry for Bungie. And Sony, seems like, we've kind of had the thought, and I guess there's been rumors out there that maybe Sony was duped into buying Bungie. Maybe, Sony didn't have all the information, but if Sony, I couldn't blame Sony for coming in and basically saying, hey, this is a shit show and we're going to come clean it up. If you don't like it, tough, because we have now all these legal problems. We have, all these issues with your company, with your leadership, and we're just going to come in and run the show. So I couldn't blame Sony for wanting to do that. They made a massive investment in Bungie, and Bungie has been nothing but news story after news story. And let's be real, not good news either. No one's praising Bungie for anything lately. So, good for them. I guess Bungie deserves some credit for not just saying, oh, this wasn't our fault, we're going to fight in court. If they own up to it and say, hey, it'd be nice if they, we may never know how they're going to make good on this. Maybe they contacted the artist or somebody, legal representation, privately. I guess that'd be the best way to handle it. But, hopefully they will do what's right and make amends for this. And basically, go to their leadership, will go to their teams and be like, look, if you do this, we will fire you. We can't have this. We can't have this bad press. We've got bad enough press as it is. So, there has been, it seems, a need for a cleanup at Bungie for the longest time. But, while it's hard to feel bad for Bungie because even if this stuff is hitting them one by one, it could have been the fact that Bungie dodged all this shit for years and now it's finally coming to fruition because of decisions they made. So it's more likely the case that Bungie is their kind of their own is their own worst enemy in all of this. So Sony seemingly throwing them a life raft, buying them, bringing them under, not necessarily under the PlayStation Studios banner, but basically owning them and giving them autonomy. It seems like, like I said, clearly with all the bad press they've gotten, it's not that Bungie's the victim. They're clearly their own enemy in everything.
Which is interesting because we talk again about how they wanted to get out from Microsoft's boot, and then they go over to Activision, and it seems like every step of the way, something that's happened to Bungie, everybody said, oh, well, it's Microsoft doing it, or it's Activision doing it, or now it's Sony doing it, and yet every single time something like that's come up, it's come out and said, no, Bungie is actually pretty self sufficient. They just under those banners. So everything that's happening is under Bungie's watch. But now I think Sony, with how much they bought Bungie for, is kind of looking at that deal going, what the fuck did you do? All of this shit, it's kind of like that problem child. What did you do now? Why are you this way? So when you talk about Destiny 2 and the things that have come out there, it was, there was a lot of issues with some of their DLCs, the recent DLCs, and I think the Final Shape, which was the last DLC they had for Destiny 2, really wasn't breaking any grounds. There wasn't any sort of huge reception. There were some people who liked it, some people who didn't like it, pretty much on par for all the DLCs that were out there. But I just don't know what their goal is. Marathon is supposed to be their next big thing, and reception of that was very lukewarm, and that's got to hit you in the morale. That you've been working on this thing for so long, and it comes out and everybody goes, what the fuck is this? It's kind of like that Concord deal of saying, all right, interesting, I know you're working on this looks good. Oh, that's not what we wanted. And I was one of those. I looked at the Marathon trailer and I said, not for me, not what I'm looking for. But maybe there are some people that'll buy into it.
Well, not only for within Bungie and morale, which I'm assuming Bungie's morale is not in the greatest spot right now, but it's Sony. You've had all these issues, and yes, you had, Bungie not Marathon, but Destiny 2 has been a very successful game. But Sony didn't buy it at its peak popularity. Sony kind of bought it when it was on the downslide, or at least close enough to the downslide. And now you get all this news about, Marathon, and it seems like that's starting to go a little south. And so if you're at Sony, you're like, God, again, with this? Spending all your, probably demoralizing for the Bungie team because you've spent years and just years of your life working on this game. And now, but on the Sony side, you're like, we bought you for this much, and now you've got another game coming out that people just don't seem to care about. And you think with nostalgia should carry this game, but if it's not the same marathon game, like a remake of the marathon game that everyone loved, you kind of got to expect that just maybe you're not going to get marathon fans from back in the day, and you may not actually, get any new adopters for younger generations who maybe just don't care about marathon. They've already got like their multiplayer games, or marathon's just not good enough to pull them away from anything they're already playing.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's like you said, it's hard. They're not going to pull in old people, and they're not necessarily winning over new people. So I gotta see how they come back from this, if they come back from this.
Yeah, I mean, is there any other way to look at it, Matt, than Bungie's fucking up? Is there any other way?
Again, I think we talk about the leadership decisions and the things that have led them to this point, and I think not to take anything away from the hardworking developers and programmers, they're just kind of going the direction that leadership is. I think similar to what we've said all along, certain heads need to roll, and unfortunately the wrong heads will.
How long until they look at the top? We know Pete Parsons is the CEO. How long? Because he's been the guy running the show for as long as I can remember. How long until that guy comes in the crosshairs and Sony's looking at him and saying, all right, dude, we got to get rid of you?
I think that's the risk they run, being under somebody's boot, to say, all right, it's only going to work so long. You can only cut so many heads before the person in charge is going to have to go. And I think the time is going to come sooner than Bungie would like.
Or, who knows? We don't know what kind of deal Sony has with them. It may be that Pete Parsons is insulated. He's like, hey, I'm the owner. I'll sell this to you, but you can't touch me. Like, yes, you can have other decisional capacity. If you need to fire somebody, you can. I wonder if Pete Parsons worked that in. I don't know. Because if he stays there, the only way I can see him staying there is if there's something in the contract where Sony can't fire him.
Yeah, well, they may not be able to fire him, but they might make his life a living hell trying to start micromanaging. Speaking of heads rolling, just as a small offshoot, Microsoft said Tuesday. Is this the Ichabod Crane
segment? Is this the Sleepy Hollow segment?
This is the sad gaming news corner segment.
Well, I was kind of sad when Ichabod Crane got his head lopped off, so,
I don't remember that being the story. The ones I watched, Ichabod Crane beat the Headless Horseman.
Did he? Maybe I was wrong. For some reason, I thought something happened to him, but I guess maybe in the movie, Johnny Depp won over. Johnny Depp was the hero of the day, but
God, I think I watched that one. I thought I watched that movie once, and I said never again.
Wait, the Johnny Depp one?
Yeah.
Sir, you may have won me over a little bit by playing through Ocarina of Time again, but I will not have you slander Sleepy Hollow starring Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, and Casper Van Dien.
Listen, here's
Johnny
my thing.
Rico himself.
The lines between Johnny Depp's Sleepy Hollow versus Johnny Depp's, what the fuck was that Barber movie?
Sweeney Todd?
Sweeney Todd, yes. Are very thin, so I just might be conflating one for the other. I don't know.
Sir, one of them took place in like New England in like the 1800s, or I can't remember when, and the other one, Demon of Barb for Fleet Street's like a fantasy. I don't know how you conflate those two, but you know what, Matt?
Because he looks and sounds exactly the same.
Your mind is a powerful thing.
I've been told. Microsoft announced on Tuesday that it's laying off 3% of its employees across all levels, teams, geographies, affecting about 6,000 people, coming from CNBC, written by Jordan Novet. Just basically not even necessarily related to gaming, but we always know that things are changing at Microsoft, and being 3%, 6,000 people across all of their segments. It's, it just adds to the list that has come up. That what does it said? Microsoft has 228,000 employees worldwide at the end of June, and that's after their previous reductions in force. Just more coming from Microsoft, these big companies just deciding that, we need to be more efficient. And I guess when, you cut off Skype, I guess you don't need people in that Skype area anymore.
Well, I'm sure based on, I know they had constant updates for Skype, but how many, they had to have one guy on Skype. There's no way, especially, if you go back 15 years and you would tell me the Skype team was 20 people, okay, I'll believe that. These days, though, I can't believe there was more than a few people on that Skype team.
So interestingly enough, even though Skype consumer died, Skype for business is still active for like another 6 months. I know because my job uses it, and I'm like, well, this is going to suck when everything goes away. But we have Teams, so there's that. Nothing more to report on that. Just wanted to, again, touch on that. Yet more layoffs coming to Microsoft.
No, I thought I was a little bit aghast at the numbers. How many people were they laying off?
Around 6,000.
Around 6,000. Okay, that's the number I thought I heard. And
remember, that's 3%.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft is gigantic. But I mean, man, that's 6,000 just being 3%. I mean, that's a lot of people. Like, unfortunately, like you think about it, like we need to say the 6,000 because the 3% doesn't do it justice. Because 3%, you're like, oh, that's not that much. But then that's 6,000 people's jobs. That
put real numbers to it.
Yeah. Put the human spin on it. The 3% of a corporation is not a human spin. It's very much a corporate, like, hey, we're not doing all that much. And then you look at the human side, it's like 6,000 people are affected. It's a lot.
3% of planes fall out of the sky. There's a crisis.
0.5% of planes fall out of the sky. And yeah,
it's a crisis.
I'm looking away from, I'm flashing back to the original Final Destination. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll drive everywhere.
Yeah, well, in New Jersey, we have no trains. Planes are being a problem, so we've just had buses and automobiles. Next article, it's a little bit of a spin coming from PC Gamer. I'll be the first to admit that. But basically saying that PC gaming remains undefeated. Nintendo now says it has the right to brick your Switch if it thinks you're pirating games or modifying the console. Written by Ted Litchfield, coming from PC Gamer. So again, I'm more going into the point of this saying where Nintendo made a new end user license agreement, and there's some things in there that people are crying wolf on that have been in there for nearly a decade now. But one of the things that they said is the restrictions in question that you may not take advantage of are publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, lease, rent, decompile, disassemble, distribute, offer for sale, or create derivative work of any portion of Nintendo account services. So basically, don't copy Nintendo accounts. You can't bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections in Nintendo account services. All of this is just to saying that they are getting to the point where if they found out you have modified your console, they might actually send like a kill code or something that would take that system down. Further blurring the lines of whether or not you actually own hardware now compared to software, which we know you don't own.
Oh, come on, Matt. You know people get riled up whenever we say the truth.
Well, heaven forbid. So the problem is, and they talk about there are plenty of legitimate reasons to jailbreak or modify a console or extract a ROM from a game that you own, which you're legally allowed to extract ROMs from games you own, or I should say, make a backup copy. But the problem is half the time you need to do that, you need to break decryption on these things, which in and of itself is illegal, at least in the US. So it's kind of a oxymoron in saying you can do this, but you're not allowed to. So now you look at it and say, well, if we don't own our games and we don't own our consoles, what do we own? And even more so, I'll give you this. With the Switch and Joy-Con drift and how often people had to repair their own Joy-Cons because it was out of warranty. Is that something Nintendo's going to track, or are they going to determine, well, you put in new joysticks in here, so therefore that's you modified the Switch, we're sending the kill code? These are the concerns I have. Yeah, jailbreaking, illegally copying games, things like that, I get it. But modifying the console? What if you put in a bigger battery? And they say, no, not allowed to. This is getting to a point where Nintendo is now in the game because our boy Joe Priestley is out there talking about it's silly to think that people don't think Microsoft or Sony would be above doing the same thing. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, if you a lot of times it says when you open electronics and you're trying to get to the innards and fix a problem, it says you will void your warranty if you do this. So I guess any kind of modifications, even putting in new batteries, can be seen as voiding your warranty. But I mean, think about it. With Joy-Cons, if they still follow the warranty when you've opened it up because of their Joy-Con drift problem, they can't sell you another Joy-Con. I mean, at the end of the day, if your stuff breaks, it behooves them, to get you to buy another pair of Joy-Cons. Now, if they have a massive problem like the Red Ring of Death, you definitely don't want that. That's just bad PR. And for a company, that definitely matters. But if my personal Joy-Cons break and I got to go buy another pair, that's just more money for Nintendo. So, I mean, they very much could say any modifications. You open up your controllers, you open up your console, you have modified it. And, so I mean, as much as it's, luckily for me, like the Joy-Cons, I won't buy another Joy-Con because, I mean, I want to buy Mario Parties. I want to play Mario Parties, but I hate the Joy-Cons so damn much. I'm sorry, they're terrible controllers. Good ideas, but the execution's fucking awful. So, I mean, a lot of times when I had a Nintendo game, I just played on like a Pro controller because the Joy-Cons were such an issue. But as far as consoles go, I never buy warranties on them, additional warranties from the store, because for me, you have that built-in year, and I find that if I have a console for a year protected under their warranty, if it makes it past that year, usually I'm good. I don't got to worry about it, so it'll last me a while. But yeah, I mean, could I see these companies legally going in, any of them, saying, well, you did this, you opened it up, because they don't know what exactly you did when you open it up. They don't know if you hit something, you knock something loose. I could absolutely see them all saying, hey, you did this to try to improve your console. Well, it's no longer under warranty, and I guess under their new rules, they could say, if we feel like you modified it, we can, as you said, send a kill code to knock your console out.
So this kind of goes back to the argument of the right to repair movement, of people saying that we buy these things, and once they're out of your warranty, they could break. We need the ability to repair them. And this kind of comes from the John Deere tractor fight that's been out there, where people say we need to be able to repair these things, and John Deere's out there saying, well, if you repair it with unauthorized or third party parts and you damage it, it comes back to us legally, liability. There's people that might sue us, or our brand gets hurt. It's like if your 10-year-old tractor breaks down and you go to repair it and something fails, I think people have bigger things and fish to fry than that comes out. But these consoles are definitely bringing us back to the idea that when it comes to gaming, we really don't own anything. And yeah, like I look at my Steam account and the thousands I've spent there, and I go, all right, well, when I die, I just got to give my name and password to somebody else, so that way they can enjoy, even though that's against the terms of service. But it's got to go somewhere. I mean, certainly you've preservationism being what it is, it leaves something to be desired that companies aren't embracing certain things. And Nintendo certainly has been on a lawsuit happy trail these past couple of years, because a lot of the things that they do, especially with their Nintendo Switch Online service, is putting out older games under the subscription service. So for them to be like, well, we'll brick your console if you decide to do something to the OS. I think if it's getting to that point for me, kind of like my 3DS, where the shop isn't available anymore, and if I wanted to modify it, okay, takes it off their service, puts it on my own. I think there's like the first couple of years of a console are kind of telling in the hacking community. One of the biggest reasons Nintendo made a version 2 of the original Switch was because there was a hardware fault that allowed people to hack the console. And there was nothing Nintendo could do because it was like set to like a fuse or a capacitor or something. No amount of firmware updates would fix that. They had to put out a different version of the hardware. But I think when you get to the point of like 4 or 5 years on a console and people are starting to tinker around with it, I don't think they're as concerned about Nintendo bricking their console or owning it at that point. But for those of us who are legitimately using it, I'm more concerned about, well, what if I want to repair something? What if I want to put in an aftermarket OLED screen? Like the Steam Deck. The original Steam Deck was an LCD screen, and they have aftermarket OLED screens before Steam came out with their own OLED Steam Deck. And Valve was like, yeah, go for it. We don't care. It's your machine. Do it. So again, just a difference of opinion when it comes to what certain manufacturers allow versus others.
Yeah, I don't know if Nintendo would ever send a kill code to just take out someone's Switch, because at the end of the day, that then takes a consumer away from them. I guess that they then have to they've questioned themselves whether this consumer is actually contributing to their, bottom line, because if you're potentially jailbreaking your console, are you stop buying games, you're just downloading games on your console? But you got to be careful with that, because you then potentially lose customers. It's a real bad look for you, even if like someone is kind of just pirating games. That's in today's, like, I think that you have, I don't want to say more support for pirating than ever, but you definitely have a lot of people out there waving that flag. And so while I don't think Nintendo is going to go out there and try to just brick consoles, because that could be, I mean, I guess if they put in their EULA, I mean, I guess maybe they're legally protected, but yeah, that'd be a crazy world if they were doing that, because them putting that out there, I think, might be enough to scare people away. Whereas people who are going to do it, at the chance of having their console bricked, are going to do it anyway. I mean, hell, you could always just disconnect your console. If you ran an emulator on your Switch, you could just disconnect from the internet and play games on your console offline, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one thing to say that they'll send a kill code if they determine that you're illegally modifying. And this kind of goes back to that, well, I'm downloading ROMs off the internet. Is my internet provider going to see that, and are they going to cut off my internet, or they send a warning? I think they're putting it in there because they have the potential to see somebody doing a lot of things. Like if they find somebody is copying all of their games and downloading them to a ROM or an external cartridge, I think they'll take notice, and they'll take action if they sense a blatant disregard for their copyright laws. But there are some countries, I forget what country it was, somebody put a request for information, we'll call it, to Nintendo. A country said, you have 15 days to explain this. And if not, they could face potential backlash from a government for putting that in. So something that they need to tread carefully on. Other things to tread carefully on coming from The Gamer, written by Joshua Robertson. Some devs at Xbox are saying, why should we even bother making an Xbox game? Devs and publishers are reportedly baffled by Xbox's exclusivity strategy. And this comes back to that idea that Gears of War will soon find its way on the PlayStation 5, both in the remastered, reloaded edition, whatever it was called, and then the new Gears of War E-Day game coming down the line. And, in the latest episode of the Game Business Show, there's a host that claims that multiple developers and publishers are baffled by Xbox's recent decision surrounding exclusivity, and some are so concerned that they're wondering what the benefits of releasing a game on Xbox are at this point. Certain publishers and developers have spoken to me baffled by this because from their point of view, they want to make competition in the console space. They go, why should we even bother making an Xbox game if this is a strategy? That's the balance that Microsoft is going to have to strike. I guess my question is, what does it matter to them on making an Xbox game versus a game that is for multiple consoles? I will say from the developer standpoint, it's more complex because now you got to develop for multiple systems. But if they're being paid and they're developing a game and the game sells, I'm not sure the downside, I guess. I don't know if it's his brand loyalty.
Do you think maybe it has to do with them maybe making an Xbox version at first and then later on being asked to make another version? Like, how upfront are Microsoft with what games are going to eventually show up on another console? Because obviously this is Microsoft first party stuff, right? It's not... obviously, when it comes to third parties, that's up to them. Like Microsoft's
exactly, yeah. Third parties are selling for whatever system. Now, if there's an exclusivity deal, and Xbox says we're going to pay you X, we want you to develop a game only for our console, then the developer okay, yeah, sure. Well, as long as you pay us, Microsoft's money is good. I guess for me, again, I think it comes down to back to that idea that you're working on an Xbox game, and now you're told, oh, well, now you have to develop for PlayStation 2. More work, I guess.
Could be, yeah, kind of like a surprise. And like you had plans to do another project or work on DLC, but now you got to work on another version for Sony. Also, this would probably seem to be more of an issue for Microsoft first-party studios, like people who work for Microsoft. It's like, okay, hey, the Grounded team, like you guys made Grounded, and now we want you to make later on down the line, we want you to make a PlayStation version. Like that kind of messes with your schedule and what you allocate people to do and your resources. So if you're working for Microsoft and you're kind of looking at Microsoft, okay, we kind of understand what your all's future is and what your future plan is, but now you're killing our exclusivity on a lot of these games. Like, why do we even work for Microsoft when we could just work for another third-party studio and have autonomy over ourselves and be able to make games for whoever we want? Like, this would seem to be an issue within Microsoft teams more than anybody.
It seems to me there's a little bit of a fanning the flames of a console war here, and I'm like, we are so far past console wars, guys. Your systems have your games. Sony has their exclusives. Nintendo has their exclusives. Xbox has Game Pass and is trying to get as many games to as many people as possible. And I don't understand the sentiment of, I hate work. Like, yeah, I get it. I hate work, but like, I hate job security. Like, if you're developing a game and you're in trouble and the only way to save you is by making sure that game reaches more people for more sales, I'm not sure that's a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe it's weird.
Again, like, we can't be the only one questioning. Like, we get Microsoft being forward thinking. But if you're from a Microsoft team, and again, we just talked about Microsoft laying off 6,000 people. If you're working under Microsoft Game Studios and you're like, all of our exclusives are going to Sony, therefore there's no reason for anyone to buy our console that we're working on or we've been working on for years. I mean, sure, you could buy on PC as well, but Windows brings in a ton of money from Microsoft. So, they've always been working for PC. But I guess looking at it as like, how are we future-proofing our company and our games division and my job in general to be putting these consoles on putting these games on other consoles? Now, again, like, putting old Gears of War games on PlayStation is not going to hurt the Xbox Series X in any way because, it's the first, like, Gears of War. Like, no one's going to buy the first Gears of War on, like, an Xbox Series X. No one's going to get upset that exclusive went over to Sony. But I guess maybe looking at Microsoft as a whole, like, maybe it's people within the company looking at the company and saying, like, you've had a lot of layoffs. You've had multiple rounds of layoffs. Is this really what's best for us? Essentially turning to Sega willingly and making games for other people instead of the box that we have, coming out of our production.
Yeah, I guess the other way to look at this is, if I'm going to make a game for PlayStation, let's say I'm not a Microsoft team. Let's say I am a third-party publisher, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. Let's say you are making a game, and you go, I've got to make an Xbox version, I've got to make a PlayStation version. I think maybe the sentiment here is, why am I going to make an Xbox version? I could just make the PlayStation version. But to me, again, that's kind of short-sighted in the aspect of you're then limiting your resources to one system. Now, you could say, I put all this money into an Xbox version and nobody bought it because it just went on Game Pass. But I don't know. It just seems weird to me that somebody says, if you're making games, why would you not want your game as widely available as possible? I don't know.
I can understand that. But again, the only thing I can think of is that as a team, you have a plan for what you're going to do, a roadmap. It's like, okay, once we do this, we're going to do this. Once we finish this up, and kind of the company that is over your head, and we've all been through this, we do our jobs, and there's somebody over our head that makes a bonehead decision. It's like, you aren't here with us. You don't see how this affects us. Maybe Microsoft is going to these teams and saying, hey, we need a PlayStation version, and these people on these teams are like, that's not what we plan to do. Now we have to stop what we're doing to do this and allocate labor and resources to this. And I don't know about the teams at Microsoft. Apparently they have plenty of people around to fire, as we saw from their latest round, but a lot of jobs these days don't have enough people to do enough stuff. So when you're having to take labor to make another version of a game that's not for your console, for a game you already put out, I don't know. I could see how people would be rankled by that.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll just see. Again, there's time to tell whether this is going to just be more fanning the flames or it's going to be just people not knowing what their studio's direction is. I don't think there'll be much more to come from it, but just wanted to put that out there as a talking point. Another talking point coming from the PlayStation blog, written by Herman Hulst, CEO, Studio Business Group, Sony Interactive Entertainment, welcoming Team LFG to the Sony brand. It says, today I'm thrilled to officially unveil a new studio in the PlayStation Studios family. Team LFG originated at Bungie, but also has rallied developers from across the industry to bring to life an ambitious incubation project that I'm very excited about. The studio is now fully formed and ready to be introduced to the world. I'll let Team LFG introduce themselves properly and give the tiny glimpse of what they've been working on. So basically the team goes in to say who they are, where they come from, and that their first game is a team-based action game that draws inspiration from fighting games, platformers, MOBAs, life sims, and frog-type games.
Oh, that's
Players will
Frogger.
inhabit it.
That has to be Frogger.
It has to be Frogger Reloaded. Players will inhabit a lighthearted comedic world set in brand new mythic science fantasy universe. We can't wait to reveal more. I listen. They tossed in a whole lot of genres in this statement. Fighting games, platformers, MOBAs, life sims that they're drawing inspiration from. What? I see team-based action. And what's the first thing that comes to my mind, Alex?
Are you thinking a good old Concord?
Yeah. Team-based action game. Maybe.
Or not a whole lot of action, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because ain't around no more. Ain't nothing going on there.
Maybe this is going the direction where we thought Concord was going to go. They say team-based action games. So now I'm thinking Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm thinking multiplayer defending, because they say MOBAs, so that tells me that's a multiplayer online battle arena.
You know what, Matt?
Life
Has
sims.
anyone ever made a MOBA?
MOBA.
Yeah, like everyone's cows.
I'll take a classic milkshake with a utter disaster. I don't know.
Look, that's coming from someone who loved Moo Moo Farms and Super Mario Kart 64.
Great to see developers getting another chance at Sony. Great to see that some good can come out of Bungie, I guess. I don't know what this game is going to be. We'll keep an eye on it and report it. That's all I can say about this, Alex.
Hopefully something good comes out of this. There is always a chance for people within Sony. The more space you have and the more teams you have, it gives people like more mobility within Sony to where if somebody, works at this studio but wants to go work at the studio, and I know these places are, these studios are in different places, so someone who works at like Sony Santa Monica can't just up and, go to work for Guerrilla Games, which is in Europe. I mean, I guess they could if they wanted to, if they could make it happen, but if, this gives some people mobility within the studios to do a little bit more, to change teams, or for them to shift talent around. And, this opens up more jobs for people. If maybe they have too many people working on stuff at Bungie, they don't necessarily have to fire anybody. They could just move people over to help with another project that's new studio. Because again, you're splitting teams, Bungie's working on something, and this other studio is then working on something. LFG, I think, is what you called it. Yeah, you have
Team LFG.
You have multiple studios working on multiple things, and you can have talent go from one to the other. And yeah, it's a good thing. Now it could always go awry because who knows, this team. In worst case scenario, we don't want this, but teams can always perform poorly and shit happens and they disappear. But as a whole, opening a new studio and allowing more games to be made is a good thing.
Absolutely. Best of luck. Hopefully, you don't fall victim to the Jimmy Ryan curse.
Yeah, I mean, really what we need to get away from is, like, as most as possible, like, God of War Ragnarok. Now, don't get me wrong, God of War Ragnarok was a great game. But having so many studios work on that one game, it's a lot of resources going into one game. Hopefully, if you have support studios and stuff like that, I get it. Like, sometimes you need help finishing a game, but to have so many companies and so many teams invested into one thing, like, no matter how good it is, that's a lot of resources. So,
yeah,
just be wary of that, Sony.
So this is the part of the podcast where we normally go to our listener questions, but we don't have listener questions this week. So you get to hear us talk a little bit more about some gaming news, because the topic of the week is a whole lot of Sony reports. And I brought up these because I figured it'd be a good conversation anyways. We talk about the Switch coming up on the PlayStation 2 sales figure, which I think last they reported 152 or 154 million Switch have been sold since 2017, which means that they're about 6 million away, 6 or 8, depending on which the number is. Well, Sony reports 18.5 million PS5 units sold in fiscal year 2024. Software and services drive record revenue. So basically, total sales, 4.6 trillion yen. So that's a plus 9% year over year. Operating income of 414.8 billion yen, plus 43% year over year. Jesus Christ. Key segments are highlighted. And again, all this is reported on Twisted Voxel by Ollie Hader, that they sold 18.5 million PS5 units. Now, that's a negative 11% year over year. So compared to 2023. Hardware revenue was down 1.21 trillion yen. I really wish I went in and gave all these, Americanized numbers, but I didn't. However, total game software sales, 2.5 trillion yen. That's a 13% year over year. Add-on content alone, 1.34 trillion yen, 24% year over year. Network services revenue grew to 669 billion yen, plus 23% year over year. Monthly active users on the PlayStation Network increased to 124 million, which is up 5%. All of this is to say, sounds like Sony's not hurting, right?
Well, the bad is that, of course, the hardware sales are down, which the money brought in reflects that. But software sales are up. They're making more money off software. They're making more money off PlayStation Plus memberships, and they're making more money off adding content. So more positive than negative there.
You'd think for a company that's doing this well, coming from Eurogamer, written by Tom Phillips, Sony considers further price rises as it breaks for 500 million tariffs impact. Yeah. This is the thing that we've been talking about all along. And again, we're not getting political on this. We're not talking about, who did what or whatnot. We're just talking about the facts that if tariffs get enacted, who's paying for the cost? Us, the consumers. So in Japan, PS5 got its most recent price rise in August 2024. Not even 8 months ago. Maybe, no, what is it? 9 months ago? Something like that. I'm bad at math today, folks. Forgive me. Sony announced a £40 and £50 PS5 price increase in obviously Europe. Sony's Hiroki Todoki is considering producing the PS5 in the United States due to the tariffs. It needs to be considered going forward. So they're out there saying that, well, we're going to increase the price of the PS5 because of tariffs. And I can guarantee you, they do this, we're never seeing those prices go back down. If the tariffs get eliminated 6 months after they rise their prices, do you think, Alex, that they're going to just say, okay, we'll decrease the price again?
I do not, because once consumer, I mean, you're not going to see PlayStation Plus prices go down again. Like, you could see like sales for subscription services, like for the subscriptions, like, hey, you know, this Black Friday sale. But as a whole, the prices are going to stay the same. And the same for the consoles. If they raise the price on games, games aren't going to go down in price again. It's not going to be like, oh, you're paying $80, $90 for a game now. Oh, and you know, on the next console generation, you're going to pay $70 again. No, they're going to stay inflated.
Which is funny you mentioned game prices, because coming from Games Radar, Ashley Bardhan, former PlayStation exec, says $70 or $80 games are a steal. Quote, as long as people choose carefully how they spend their money, I don't think they should be complaining. End quote. That former executive, Shuhei Yoshida, it basically says, I don't believe every game has to be priced the same. Each game has different value it provides or the size of the budget. I totally believe it's up to the publisher, developer, self-publishing decision to price the product to the value they believe they are bringing in. And we've had, this discussion before when our boy Jeff was on the show and saying, I'm of the mindset it sucks. I disagree with Shuhei saying that we absolutely have a right to complain. But I'm also saying, well, in economic times, comparably, paying $70, $80 now is what we were paying $60 or $70 years ago. So I think that doesn't mean that we don't have the right to complain when you're used to things. Like we said, the price is going to go up. It's not going to come back down. It's very rare. Back in the day when games used to cost $70, $80, $90, and then they all got marked down to the standard of $50. And then once it hit Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, it went up to $60. Absolutely. We always have the right to complain, but we also have the right to vote with our wallet. Are you willing to put up with it? No? Yes? That's up to you as the gamer. Alex, what do you think about our boy Yoshida and his...
Well, I want to point out that I think
comments?
it's not necessarily just the price of games that's the issue. It's the price of everything. Like, we're paying a lot more than I know you have to go and compare incomes to the cost of goods and cost of living and all that, but, people are feeling a pinch in a lot of areas of life. So it's not necessarily just the cost of games. It's the cost of everything else on top of games. So you kind of have to figure out what you're going to pay for. And so just because games used to be more on the N64 or more than we were paying, say, on the PlayStation 2 or, the Dreamcast or whatever, it doesn't mean that those being the same price now doesn't affect us differently in a different time, in a different place. So I also think that the idea, like, calling them a steal, it's like, yeah, just be careful with your money. Do you know how many companies and people out there are relying on money to be spent on video games? There's a lot of games being made. There's more games than anyone can play in a lifetime. There's probably more games out there than the four of us as co-hosts on a podcast can play in a lifetime altogether. Even if we separated and said, no, we're not playing any games, overlap, we're all just going to play all the games. So that's a lot of people resting their livelihoods on people spending money on games. And if you get choosy, if people get too selectful and choosy, selectful is not even a word, I don't think. If they get too selective and choosy, that's a lot of money not being spent on games. So the idea saying that, oh, that's a steal, one, I think it's tone deaf, and it's really stupid to say that. Even if, as Jeff pointed out, the cost of games did not rise for generations, so now we're feeling more of that pressure because the cost of games has just gone up. The cost to make games has gone up. But to come out and say, like, oh, just be careful with your money, you're telling people to spend less on games and buy fewer games, which is, one, calling it a steal is it comes off incredibly tone deaf, and it's the wrong thing to say to people when people can barely afford a lot of things, especially when they got to worry about paying bills and all that kind of stuff and buying food. But telling people to be more selective and spend less on games, if you're somebody making games, you don't want people saying that shit. So I understand what he's saying. And yes, like if you're careful with your money, yeah, I mean, you should always be careful with your money. You shouldn't spend frivolously, but telling people that it's a steal to pay $80, $90 for a game and telling people to be more selective and spend less money in games or buy fewer games, that's really kind of fucking stupid. I mean, let's be real here.
Yeah, it's cutting your nose to spite your face because you say, well, you should be careful with how you spend your money. Well, so should you as a studio.
You should be careful with how you pick your words.
Yeah, games are costing more than ever to make, but also games don't need to cost that much. Like, why is fucking Grand Theft Auto 6 costing billions of dollars to make when they've made much more successful games on a much smaller budget? Because things balloon. Yeah, there's cost, there's overhead, there's marketing. I get it. But also, I get a silly indie game, Balatro, got added to Game of the Year. Like, you don't have to do that. So, I don't know. I look at all this to say there's times I feel games are going to be worth the money. But I bought Doom the Dark Ages, but I also bought it at a discount from a key seller. A legitimate one. That I always tend to go to them. For games I know I'm going to buy.
You gotta get that in there, Matt. Don't let people think you're some kind of scoundrel.
Oh, yeah. Well, no. G2A, CD keys, no, fuck that. I want to support the developer if it's a game I know I'm going to love. Monster Hunter, Doom. I'm going to go out there and buy the game day one because I want to make sure that the sales are reflective of their success is reflective of the sales. But if I look at a game and I'm hazy on it and I'm looking at it going, Bungie's making this and it's a $70 game. Yeah, I can hold off. And then you got developers out there saying, well, if you want to support the developer, buy the game day one for full price. No, Shuhei told me I should spend my money carefully. So I will. So yes, you can complain, but also make sure you vote with your wallet, folks.
Yeah. I mean, companies have to run the business the way they best see fit. So if that means charging more for games, charging more for PlayStation Plus, that's up to them. Problem is that, we can't control what these companies do, but we can react appropriately. And so if these companies raise the price of games and all of a sudden people don't, or they raise the price of consoles and people spend less money and your profits go down, don't be surprised. Like, don't expect people to just continue to spend as much money on games or buy as many games as they do in the past when the prices go up. And I think that from the standpoint of video game makers, I understand that the costs are ballooning, but there needs to be a way for them to continue to make good games, game of the year quality games, or just good games in general, without making costs go wild, So from one hand, you got the game companies being like, well, we need to make more money. And then you're asking consumers who are spending more money on everything else to spend increasingly more amounts of money. So I understand the video games argument, the video game companies' arguments, and I understand, what, Jeff coming on here and talking, and explaining things the way he does. Problem is, as consumers, you got to pinch somewhere, and no one can be surprised when we spend less money on games because everything's just more expensive. You can't blame people for that either.
Yeah, we don't need games. We need milk, eggs, bread, food, electricity, gas. Games are nice to have. And if, this isn't COVID times anymore, Shuhei, because guess what? You had this giant boom when everybody was stuck at home. Well, when when the costs are going up and we have to make a choice, I obviously know what gets paid first. Things come later. What a show. I think this is record time for us, Alex.
It's just around
with that
110, I think.
Yeah, that's around that. So with that said, we will start closing out. Alex, your shoutouts.
I want to give a shout out to the community, the fans, the fuel to the fire, there's Trophy Whores. Thank you all for continuing to support us here in 2025 and beyond. You all are amazing. Couldn't do it without everyone out there listening and spreading the word of Trophy Whores. Give a shout out to Matt here, host for the night. Well, I mean, given the Green Alley Takeover, pretty much the host every week. Give a shout out to Matt. Give a shout out to Yield and Tricky, who could not be here tonight. Yield, hopefully your efforts were fruitful down in Nicaragua. And Tricky, thanks for being a human shield up in New York for important churches up there. Tricky will have to give the story behind that when he's back on. Hopefully everyone had a good Mother's Day out there, celebrating with family, or if you were mothers, you were, treated very well and had a special day for yourselves. Last but not least, give a shout out to my awesome and loving girlfriend, Ashley, who is also a mother. I love you, hun. And yeah, that is going to be the end of my shout outs.
So I'll forego most of my normal shout outs. I will say thank you, Alex, for recording tonight. And again, shout out to Tricky and Yield always. But for those of you who haven't heard, and for those of you who did reach out, thank you. But unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to our dog Zelda over the past week or so. And she had been fighting something called degenerative myelopathy for about 2 years. It's a disease in a dog, incurable, and eventually they slowly start losing the use of their legs, and it starts with the back legs and begins working its way up the spine until it affects their breathing because it paralyzes them and affects their diaphragm. Me and V decided that once they got a certain quality of life, we didn't want her to suffer anymore. And again, there's no pain with this disease because it's literally just a paralysis, but the anxiety of not being able to do the things she loves, the stress of having to worry about her and, making sure she's taken care of. It's a damn hard disease, but like I said, unfortunately we had to make the hard decision to say goodbye to her, and she is probably the best damn dog I've ever had, and she will definitely be missed. So big shout out to Zelda. Now that I brought the entire show down, it's I really appreciate everybody listening. But with that, we will see you on the next episode. This has been Trophy Wars number 672. Thank you very much for listening, and catch you on the next episode.
Later.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12 Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.